So, I've had quite a few people reach out to me and say, Jordan, what is it really like inside of Stupar Sales Academy, aside from all of the amazing content that you claim to have, and what's it like to actually work with you in masterminds, group trainings, one-on-ones, so on and so forth? Well, I'm gonna go ahead and just record a meeting that I'm having with an insurance company out on the West Coast. They told me, because I stay in touch with the business owner, that specifically right now, that they're sensing some burnout. It's really here in the middle of January, and of course the scoreboard is back to zero like it always starts for sales. So I'm gonna record this and I'm gonna take a unique approach to handling burnout and like the motivation that they need. He said that they need motivation. Well, I'll be the first person to tell you they don't need motivation. So here's a unique approach on how I'm able to custom tailor what it is that my clients need to hear, give it to them, and then help bridge the gap between what they learn and how to actually apply it. Stay tuned. Here it is. Hopefully all of you guys are doing well. Roman, how are you doing?
Doing well, my man.
Good, man. Having a good January or what?
Not terrible.
Not terrible. That's good. Obviously, I think we can all do better. That's always the most common answer, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
So, team, Misha, Tanny, Zana, all you guys, I was just texting with Roman before this meeting, and you know, as always, of course, we have a curriculum that we can follow, because if you don't have a curriculum, then you know, you're just kind of talking about whatever you want to talk about, and it doesn't really get much done. So I was talking with Roman, and he mentioned, you know, we can hit the curriculum here in a second, but he wanted me to kind of focus in a little bit on this word called burnout. He mentioned that you guys may be feeling a little burnt out, and I get it, you know, because you go from, you know, a full year of 2020, you're selling, you're getting traction, you're doing good deals, you're making things happen, and by December, you're like, yes, like this year's almost over, and by the way, 2020, like, thank God that is over. But, you know, January 1st rolls around, and boom, you start right back from zero, and you know, it's Q1 again of the big game. And as salespeople, right, in our career, every single day is game day. And you know, we rarely get, you know, long breaks, and there's no like summer vacation and, you know, things like that to really look forward to. So it can be easy to experience burnout. But burnout is something that I could talk about. I could also easily be like everybody else and talk to you guys about motivation, or I could tell you to, you know, 10x or make more phone calls, or, you know, work harder, whatever those things mean. But really those aren't the right answers. When it comes to making more calls, when it comes to doing the work, when it comes to increasing your levels of activity and the results that actually come from more activity, the word that I think that I want to focus on is complacency. Complacency is the thing that can affect all sorts of parts of our lives. It can ruin our relationships, it can ruin our diets, it can ruin our health, it can ruin our growth, it can ruin a lot of things. And what complacency in sales is it's usually a disassociation or an unlinking of the real big goal. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you guys my personal example, right? I feel like I make it pretty public that, you know, my big goal, or at least one of them, is to have, you know, a really big house on a lake or an ocean or whatever, with also enough room in the backyard to build a private racetrack with like an airplane hangar of like 12 Porsches sitting in there, so that I can just race around my own track all day. And yeah, that's a pretty massive and pretty ridiculous and stupid goal, I will admit. But that's my big goal, and that's just, you know, the way that it is. Now, the way that I look at that goal isn't in dollar signs. Of course, I'm going to purchase all of that stuff with money. Everything that we buy is with money. And unfortunately, for me, I know roughly how much that's going to cost, but I don't know exactly how many calls it's going to take to get there. And so back when I lived in Miami and I was working for Grant, I would look at yachts, I'd look at the Ferraris, the Lambos, the nice condos, all of the, you know, nice luxury things that are running around that town. And, you know, I'm constantly asking myself, how many calls? And unfortunately, you'll never really know how many calls. But imagine with me for a moment that this big house with the racetrack, the 12 Porsches, all of that good stuff, let's just say 500,000 phone calls is the magic number. That's the real price tag in effort that I need to take to get there. Now, no doubt, I'm 33 years old. I could obviously make 500,000 phone calls over the next 30 years if I want to, no problem. And literally, I don't even know what that would break down to. It'd be, 14 calls a day or whatever the math is. And ultimately, the way that I look at my goal is I ask myself how many calls. Now, 500,000 calls is kind of just a made up, whatever number. But the question is, if I sit down at my desk, I go into my CRM, I log in, and I'm going down in the lead list, and I'm looking at all of the calls that I want to make. Just like anybody, I don't want to make them. I can think of 500,000 things I'd rather do than make 500,000 phone calls and get hung up on and handle objections and go through the motions of being a salesperson. It's not that fun. I'll be the first person to admit it. But what gets me not complacent and gets me on the phone is understanding that, if it's going to take 500,000 phone calls total to get to where I actually want to go, you guys tell me, should I actually make like 47 phone calls today? Or should I try to bang that phone as many times as possible today to shorten the amount of time it takes for me to make my 500,000th phone call? And that's why it's extremely important to be tied in to your goals. And I know that that's one of those cliche things, but it's a real reality that every single moment of time, you can either be contributing to the attainment of your goals or you can be just expanding how long it takes to get there. It's kind of like running a mile or walking a mile. If you need to go 1 mile and you don't have a car, an Uber, a bike, scooter, whatever, and you need to walk on foot, and like time is of the essence, would you rather get there in 6 minutes and run? Or would you rather take 14 minutes and, walk? That's what making phone calls is. And so if you're experiencing burnout, it probably has something to do with an unlinking or a disassociation of what it takes to get to your goals. And so that's why I have photos, behind me of Porsches that I want and stuff that, it's just a reminder like, hey, it's not going to just put itself in the driveway. The house you want isn't just going to build itself. These are things I need to work for. And really, every single phone call you will get paid for. And every single phone call is a contribution to the attainment of that goal. Now, obviously, the house, the racetrack, the 12 Porsches, this example right here, I probably won't have it for a couple of years, right? It's not something that I'll, unless I win the lottery. I'm a business owner. I have lots of expenditures, and I have even more expenditures that I'm gonna have to lay out to hire people and blah, blah, blah. So I'm years away from this goal. So what's my goal this year? How do I get motivated about making calls, packing up cash cards, doing social media posts, recording content, and all the things that I have to do in my life? Well, it's the fact that I know what I want to do this year, because this year's goal is to just grab a puzzle piece of the big puzzle. The racetrack and the 12 Porsches is the big puzzle. So what can I do today? What little puzzle piece can I actually get today? So with you guys in insurance, right? It's not the easiest thing to sell insurance and stay hyped about it. It's not the sexiest product in the world. It's not something that you guys probably wake up for at 4 o'clock in the morning. You can't sleep because you're so excited to jump on the phone with Robert who needs insurance. It's really not like that. And that's just the way it works. And so how do you get hyped up and how do you deal with complacency or this thing called burnout? Well, you got to have yourself an idea of, one, you have to have the belief that every single thing that I do today is going to contribute on down the line to the main thing that I want to do. But also, every single phone call, every single meeting, every single appointment, every single demo, everything that I'm doing is going to contribute to the goal for this year. And so, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we did the math with Roman on how he might be able to make $700,000 this year, and we reversed engineered the numbers to reflect exactly what he would have to do Monday through Friday, 261 working days here in 2021. And if you guys remember that, hopefully, you were able to do that for yourselves. If you want to make your first 100,000 this year or $250,000 or whatever the goal is for you, Two things is you got to reverse engineer and do the math, or else you're just walking into the office and, after 57 phone calls, you make an excuse, you go, to the bathroom, you step outside for a smoke, you go get a long lunch, or, you just start delaying what it is that you need to be doing. But again, if you knew that if you were making 176 phone calls every single day, and that was the number, that was the price tag, there's probably a reasonable chance you'd hit the 176 phone calls and make an extra 24, just because that's 24 less phone calls you need to make in order to get to where you actually want to go. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense to you guys, because again, it's the disassociation of a goal, and that's what brings in the reluctance to go to work and be excited and get done the things that we actually want to get done in our lives. So with that being said, how do we actually link this back up? How do we associate our goals with the work? And I think maybe one of the best things that you guys can do, if you have the data, is look at how many phone calls you made last year. Are you guys able to track that?
Yeah. I'd have to. Yeah.
Roughly. It doesn't have to be, exact, but that would be really great. But at the end of the day, it's very simple, guys. If, say, for instance, Misha over here, made, let's just say she made 114 calls per day, 5 days a week, took off the weekends and holidays, and did 114 phone calls times 261 working days. Let's just say she made 29,754 phone calls last year. Let's also say that Misha took home, $157,000 worth of income. So you take the $157,000 worth of income, divide it by, I think it was the 27,754 phone calls in this example, which means that if Misha picks up the phone and dials, and she gets hung up on, she just made $5.65. If she gets caught up with the gatekeeper, she just made $5.65. If she gets a deal, she makes $5.65. That is what a phone call is actually worth to Misha. And if you can start actually really understanding that that's the way that this whole thing works, well, then you're going to be pounding the phones, because you know that no matter what happens on the phone, dude, I just made $5, $6. And then from there, you begin feeling, not so complacent. It's really how many times do I want to make $5? How many times do I want to make $6? And then if you're really detail oriented and you're aware of the way that things actually work and grow, is you can either then make the decision, Misha, to make more phone calls every day. Great, I'm going to go from making 114 to 214 and make an extra, $50 every single day. Or you can get better at your sales and get better at your conversion and start having better conversations and increase the value of your average phone call to the point where maybe you make less phone calls and make more money because your skill set has gone up and you're able to, handle things a little bit better and build more value for your customers, whatever that might actually look like. And with you guys in insurance, I'm not entirely sure exactly how Roman gets you guys paid. If you guys get paid a percentage of the premium every month, if it is more of a recurring income, or if it's just kind of a one-time thing, I don't know. But if it is a book of business recurring, of course, 4 years, 5 years down the line, these phone calls aren't worth $5. These phone calls are actually worth probably $20, $30, $40 because that book of business stays with you. And in which case, how many phone calls would you want to make year number 2 versus year number 5? Well, I'm gonna work my ass off in year number 2 to make sure that all of that income follows me to year number 5. And so sales is that grind, and it kind of sucks in that regard where it's like, oh man, it's my job, I got to sit here and make phone calls. Well, understand, you don't only get paid when you get a deal. I know that's how it kind of feels and how it works out, but at the end of the day, every single phone call that you're making, you're really ringing the register. And in which case, that's something that kind of excites me, because then I can go into my CRM and I can say, wow, I made 176 phone calls today. If they're valued at $5.65, Well, dude, I just made $994 today. You know, and even if I didn't get a deal, even if I didn't even talk to anybody, but I left 176 voicemails over an entire year, the law of averages is going to tell me that I just made $994. And so, you know, I'm not here to motivate you guys with this data. This is just real numbers. And so I want to challenge you guys to, you know, check your CRM, check your reports dashboard, or whatever type of way it is that you're able to monitor your own activity, and just pull out a calculator and do a little bit of math, because the numbers do not lie. And we all know that, right? That's one of those other cliche lines, because it's true. The numbers are going to be able to help provide and tell you guys a story. And very much like in the example that I was using with Roman making $700,000 this year, and breaking it down to phone calls, you know, there's a couple of metrics in there where, you know, how many pitches do I need to do in order to get a deal? How many appointments do I need to set in order to pitch? How many phone calls does it take to set an appointment? You can look at those numbers too if you're tracking those things, and you can figure out that, man, maybe I don't need to make any more phone calls. Maybe the biggest thing that I can do here right now is get my appointments to actually show up, you know? And so there's a lot of different metrics to look at, and I know it sounds like a lot of work, but at the end of the day, you have to be in tune with what am I doing today that's going to help contribute to where I'm going in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or what is that actual goal? And so a guy like Roman, you know, if he's making $700,000 this year, I can assure you that it's probably not just because he wants to make 700. I'm assuming that would be a lily pad, or, you know, a rung in the ladder to the next puzzle piece. Well, if I had that, then I can make these investments, and boom, I could probably make 1.4 next year, because I've maybe got investments that are paying whatever. And so we can go down that route. So I want to remind you guys that sales isn't just the game of make more calls. I'm not the make more calls guy. I'm not the motivation guy. I'm the let's do the math guy and then go do the work. And if you're not making the income that you want and you're doing the work, then let's figure out how to develop those skills specifically so that you can have, you know, a little bit more luck, if you will, when you pick up the phone. So I wanted to hit that real quick, and then of course kind of jump back into, you know, the curriculum here. But I want to find out real quick if, you know, there's any questions, or even if one of you guys want me to do an example of reverse engineering it, so that you guys can, you know, really walk away with some hard data.